Hey, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
It's so wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for coming. And on such a beautiful day, you could honestly be outside. So it gives me joy that you chose to be with us today to celebrate for poets. And I will be introducing them at once. And when I see it, I just prefer the readings to flow seamlessly. So my name is Mildred Valia, and this is the order in which we're going to have the poets. We will begin with Lola Haskins, and she'll be followed by Willie Edward Taylor Carver. And the third reader will be Laura Reeve, and then we will close with Courtney LeBlanc. So Lola Haskins' poetry has appeared in the Atlantic, Christian Science Monitor, Georgia Review, Southern Review, and elsewhere. Homelight, which came out of Charlotte Lit Press, is her 14th collection and was named the Southern Literary Review 2024 Poetry Book of the Year. Salem, which came out of University of Pittsburgh 2019, was featured in the New York Times Magazine, and her past honors include the Iowa Poetry Prize, 2 NEA Fellowships, 2 Florida Book Awards, Narrative Poetry Prizes from Southern Poetry Review and New England Poetry Review. She serves as an honorary chancellor for the Florida State Poets Association. And if you want to know more about Lola Haskins, the information that was sent out to you includes the link to her website, so you can read more, and also she'll be here to sign the copies that you're going to purchase. Our second reader, Willie Edward Taylor Carver, has focused his studies on advocacy for students, particularly first-generation Appalachian and minoritized students. In 2022, Carver was named Kentucky Teacher of the Year and Ambassador to the Kentucky Department of Education. In this role, he created a platform of inclusion and advocacy for LGBTQ, BIPOC, and Appalachian students. His work has been published in Kentucky Teacher Education Week and elsewhere. Carver's story has been featured on Good Morning America, NBC, PBS, NPR, and other news outlets. And again, if you want to know more about Carver, you have his website. And his collection has won the Stonewall Book Award. That's the latest news. Okay. Our third reader, Laura Reeve, is the author of Reaching the Shore of the Sea of Fertility, which came out of Bell Point Press in 2023, and winner of the 2022 Adrian Rich Award for Poetry. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Beloit Poetry Journal, Salamander, Terrain Org, and others. She was a finalist in the 2023 Greg Grammar Poetry Contest and the 2022 Ron Rush Award. She lives and gardens near the Tennessee Overhill region, traditional land of the Eastern Cherokee. If you want to know more about Anna, again, you can visit her website. And our fourth and last reader is Courtney LeBlanc, and she is the author of the full-length collections Her Whole Bright Life, winner of the Jack McCarthy Book Prize. Tonight. So her other collection is Exquisite Bloody, Beating Heart, and Beautiful and Full of Monsters. She is the Arlington County Poet Laureate and the founder and editor-in-chief of Riot in Your Throat, an independent poetry press. She loves nail polish, tattoos, and a soy latte each morning. So without wasting time, let's welcome Lola Haskins.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do just little bits because I have 13 minutes. So from the very first section, which is homages to poets who aren't with us anymore, this one is to Sappho. and it's called Why Anais Nin Would Lie With Me. More than the shells on the beach, I desire the shells in the mountains. The shells on the beach break easily. The shells on the mountains are ancient seas turned bone. I wake, craving them with my tongue. The next section deals with birds, and I'm just going to do one and a fraction. This is called the woodpecker. He swoops, dips as if he's forgotten something, swoops again. Eventually, he lands over my head, so high up I almost fall over backwards watching him, hammer at the tree like a resolute toddler pounding pegs. Oh, woodpecker, 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 I love your hat. The last bit in this section is called Ask an Ornithologist, and I'm only going to do one. Question: is there any proper name for a flock of goldfinches? Answer: yes, there is. The collective name for goldfinches is mint, unless the birds are seen after sunset, in which case it is after dinner mint. I'm skipping the next section because the poems are too long, but it's called And They Are Gone, and I can't say anymore. The next one is called Inhumanity, Inhumanity, with parentheses around the I and the N. And this is the first poem. This is how it begins. The coup. I offered them my chest and told them, go ahead. But even Gonzales, who hated me the most, could not. How sweetly habit grows like mold on shoes in our hot country. I told them, their own troops. Brown hands, slippery on their guns, were loyal to me. And now I tell them sing. And even the ones whose throats I slit, sing. This one is called Aleppo. The father speaks of his 6-month-old boy who has never seen the sky, born here, who has never seen the sky. The baby thinks, he imagines, that the rust-colored stains on the family's ceiling of its one room are all there is. The ceasefire is temporary. There is rubble. But today the father showed his son what he could not have known to dream. Air, blue as sapphires crossed by clouds. The people of Aleppo are on strike against the aid trucks. They do not want food or clothing, they say. Bring them peace. The following section, I'm whipping through here, is called Corona. How to fall asleep during a pandemic. I keep a book on my bedside table for when my mind won't stop. Half a page and I'm gone. My friend who wrote this book should be pleased. Not everyone can sit by his reader like a father singing to a fearful child and summon the moon for her and turn her pillow soft as the sea. The other one I want to read has to do with how I spent the pandemic, which was walking in the woods, which is how I spend a lot of time every day for many years, but it was different this time. And at one point I chose one tree, and this is called 100,000 Lives after the point at which I chose that one tree. When I hold you, my hands do not meet behind. When I press my cheek against your bark, I am asking you to mark me. When I lean into you, you rise toward the light. Grandfather, thank you for your calm. I have been so afraid. Next, we have poems about my bad relationships, ending with the good one. And this one is out of my childhood, and I said I chose this because it will help you understand why I had so many abusive men. It's called The Slapped Girl. When I was a child, I used to walk up the fire road behind my house. When I saw something gleaming in the dirt ahead of me, I'd pry it up. Home, I'd clean it and cradle it in my hand. Sometimes it would tremble me. How safe it seemed. As a girl, there was nothing safe, as you probably gathered. This is called 1962, which is a hymn when I was in college. The moment at the top of the drive when my first love turned and said, "Come now," returns with the evening star, as does the rush of white air that partnered him when he jumped, then exploded every bit of him, khaki shirt and all, when he hit the bay. They are fools who believe a poem may be got for nothing. This one is fast forward many years, and it's called The Skunk. The skunk was my birthday present, 15 years before I left G. When we went to pick it up, the first thing it did was reach out from its owner's arms and bite my finger hard enough to draw blood. I should have known then, but I didn't, because once you decide something's what you want, it doesn't matter. If W, the new man, leaves you sitting in a restaurant because he just remembered he had to do the laundry, you'll wait. You'll memorize the menu. You'll stay while they're clearing up. You'll stay until they turn out the lights. The skunk was supposed to be descented. W was supposed to be on meds too. We used to kiss ourselves dizzy. We never got where we were going. By the end, he might as well have been stray. He might as well have been living under the house. I'm going to read just 3 short ones from a sequence called The Secret Life. And it has a line under the title that says, "Cada persona tiene 3 vidas, la privada, la pública, y la secreta." Each person lives 3 lives, the private, the public, and the secret. And it's Garcia Marquez. So this is the second poem. When I say your name, my phone shines in the dark. You are the moon, the path of the moon over the water. You are the star by which I sail. Angel, Angel, Amor. I should say that I wrote these poems in Spanish and translated them. I meant to say also that this is called La Dichosa, which means the happy woman. So. Then this one's called Proyección después de la pelea, which means projection after the quarrel, which we never had. When the wind dies and all is hot and still, we will pluck yellow petals and throw them into the water and see how, even so, they float. And the last one is called Because We Can Never Be Together. I live with you. I live with you in the interstice between breath and breath. In the tide pools, the cool, damp hollows the tides left in the sand. And faithfully, and when the sky turns heel all blue, I fly beside you. I forgot to fly. And faithfully, every morning we send each other circling hearts, and every bedtime kisses. And I wear you, the way a Sikh wears his cord under his clothes, in token of the ineffable beauty of the world. the last section has to do with me getting older, but not unhappy. And the title poem of the section is Rehearsing, and it's to my daughter. When you were little, I'd lullaby you every night, stroking your back lighter and lighter, until I was feathers, until I didn't exist. And I'm going to read one because I could say it, but I prefer to read one because it changes the way it comes out, if that makes sense. And hopefully I can see it because I forgot my glasses. This is going to be difficult if I mumble. Anybody got reading glasses on? No. Lottie, you got reading glasses? I do have them in my backpack, but I couldn't find them when I looked for them. So this is.
Look through the bottoms. Okay.
Okay, look through the bottoms. Okay. Oh yeah, this is great. Perfect. This poem changed my life, actually, when I figured it out. So it says, on walking in my 70s down a leafy street, behind two women in their early 40s who are chatting to each other as companionably as birds on a limb, and having thought with happy anticipation, oh, I'll be their age soon, it occurs to me that I've lost my mind. But just then, the clouds evanesce and light pours through the oaks and the ash. I could do this, I better do it from memory. And oak pours through the oaks and the ash to form lace on the pavement, lovely enough to be sewn into dresses. And I see that time is as random as the patterns the sun makes on any given day as it filters through leaves, and as illusory as a baby being born, and as strange as the years of our lives which go by without returning, and as equal as the one friend's red hair and the leaf she steps over which the wind has abandoned for love of her. And now, having finally seen that the world is every minute new, I realize that I'm only a little younger than those women after all. And I step between them and we talk as we walk. And by the end, each of us has told the other how lucky she is to have lived, to have been alive, in such a beautiful place. Thank you.
Very indulgent. I was to lift this without breaking anything. It's a success if that happens. I think it happened. I did. So first of all, thank you all for coming out for all of us. And thank you for that beautiful reading, Lola. My name is Willie Edward Taylor, Carver Jr. Sorry about all the names. I'm trying to keep track of the time here. I'm particularly happy to be at Malaprop because there's two parts of my story that connect to this place. It was here that I first bought Robert Gipe's collection. And so it was here that I first saw anyone from the mountains of Eastern Kentucky who was queer on page. It wasn't until I was an adult that I got to have that opportunity. And it was thanks to Malaprops that I had that opportunity. Secondly, there used to be these little dolls that were sold here, little puppets with figures from literary history. And I would collect those anytime that I came. And I would take those to my classroom. I believe firmly in play, not just for teens, but especially for teens. And I probably have 25 of them in total that came from here. But they were symbolic always. My students would find them and hang them from cords and do lots of strange things. But really what they were doing was playing. And that's what mattered more than anything to me. So I was named the Kentucky Teacher of the Year in 2022. Thank you. And I was named that because of the way that my students did. I was named that because of the work that they did, because of their willingness to engage with the world in creative and beautiful ways. But we live in a dark time, and I'll cut it short and just say that that moment with this obviously queer Appalachian ended in death threats, ended in my students being doxxed, ended in my students actually having to be removed from their homes by the police because people were so furious that a queer person would dare be a teacher. In the chaos of that, I started writing. And I say the word I loosely, whatever the word I means when I say it, because I discovered that there was a very angry child inside of me. A child who knew this was happening, a child who was mad that I seemed shocked it was happening, because this child knew a lot more about the universe than I was willing to let him tell me. And so this collection is made of those moments of him reminding me. This was the first. It's called Minnie Mouse Toy. Would you like a Hot Wheel or a Barbie, sir? The words float like ghosts in front of me. When I speak them, frozen by the winter air, whipping in through the drive-through window. Boy's toy. Gruff. No, just boys and toy. 2 words. Okay, we have Hot Wheels and Barbies. No wonder you work at McDonald's, you idiot. Idiot. I'm 5 again. My mother's knee-length interstate cold denim coat is a traveling house. And when I stand close enough, I smell floor cleaner, cigarette smoke, minty gum, home. The bright lights of McDonald's are a circus of plastic shining glee, and my tiny heart twists with such rapture that I feel dizzy and hug the clouds of home that are her coat. My mom clears her throat. Could I get a Happy Meal with the Minnie Mouse car? The words are soft like the quilted lining of her coat, and each petal of a word builds a flower of please. The cashier hammers a few buttons and yips our orders into a thin microphone, and then her eyes grab me and drag me from the coat. They look me up and down and tug at my shirt. I pull her coat closer until I'm surrounded by the smoke and the gum and the cleaner, and can feel the blankets on my bed piled around me. But I hear her through the imaginary walls as she hands the boxed meal to my mother. You know you're going to ruin him. The words lodge themselves into the foundation of the imaginary home. It dissolves, and suddenly I'm just a boy near a coat in a bright place with nowhere to hide. She says, thank you, but the flowers are dead and they fall fast to the ground. My mother carries the cartoon-colored box to the booth, drops a pack of menthols on the gleaming tabletop, and gently directs the toy car to the side of the cigarette box as she lights up a cigarette, exhales a whispering cobalt storm cloud of mint and worry, and then fights gravity to pull the edges of her lips into a smile. Go ahead and play, Bubby. We can eat after Mommy smokes. She tries to ash her cigarette. I try to play, but my toy car is as heavy as her smile, and like the smoke, I know the weight of it is my fault. And unlike the smoke, I can't make her feel better. The plastic is too thick, and the paint on Minnie's pink hair bow looks like my little baby cousin's cheeks that change from white to red while she screams crying, and her mom begs her to stop. I look to my mother's face. I pull myself up from the memory. I'm 16. I'm in a drive-through, and the word idiot is snowing on me. Sir, we have 2 toys, Barbie and Hot Wheels. He drives away. I keep standing. I want to share some moments from this kid's life that weren't always easy and some that were beautiful. This is called Under the Pews. Little boys in country churches can play with matchbox cars under the pews because the grown-ups assume that they're really too little to understand the preaching. I held on to that matchbox roll too long. with my grasping imaginary arms that were pulled until they broke, and until the adult said that I was too old to play cards under the pews. But I was always big enough to understand the preaching. Hellfire would scream through the little wooden church, opening fire from the pulpit. I worried the words were aimed at me, so I would drag myself under the seated churchgoers and think that if only I could imagine hard enough that the little cars were real, and that inside of them were little people going to nice little homes and having nice little suppers with their nice little friends, that I could be somewhere else with them and not get shot. But my imagination proved weaker than their artillery, and the broken sieve of my ears couldn't sift out reminders that my little gay body would soon burn in hell and be gnashed upon by teeth as I begged for water. Once I put my fingers in my ears and rapidly and noisily ground my teeth in anxious, scuttling bites, as if my teeth were trying to run away from each other, so that I could get between my mind and the spraying bullets. But I still heard the sentence as it shot holes into the back of the bench. They make caskets for children, and you could die and burn in hell tonight. I ground my teeth so violently and pushed my open palms against my ears with so much fear that my aunt noticed my reddening face and shook me back into their reality to ask me what I was doing. I panicked because being afraid of a sermon was proof I was bad. And so I quietly whispered, "I'm praying." She fell without question to her tired knees, landing on the cheap carpet glued to particle board floor, facing the bullet holes and bringing her head against the wood that was worn thin by years of women polishing it and the constant wear from the weight of worries and burdens that fractured men brought into the church, hoping to leave them with God. Twisted around on herself and facing the pew, she brought her hands together and she began to fervently pray with her nephew. The only thing I could do was talk to God with her. And so I began to pray with all of my might for the imaginary people in the little cars scattered around under the pews, that they might have nice little suppers, that they might have nice little friends, that they might feel safe in their nice little homes. It's called Waiting for God. I didn't realize there could be a religious thing here tonight. It happens. I was excited and nervous to be baptized because I thought it would make me brand new, like a toy still tied up and glued to its packaging, and also keep me from going to hell. And in the 3 days until my baptism, I still had fifth grade homework. So on a cool Thursday evening, salted thick with dogwood and cool spring air, my mom joined me. We stretched out on the tired hood of her car into the Gregorian hum of crackling housing project parking lot streetlight so that I could color in the phases of a moon with a pencil. She brought out a blanket and even let me sip some weak black coffee. You think God will wait till Sunday for the end of the world? What if he came tonight and I went to hell? She brought the cover around my shoulders, and her frayed and overworked arms anointed the bargain bin blanket with the power to embrace me. She gestured upwards. The same God that put them stars in the sky didn't do it so he would send you to hell. He holds them up for a reason. He'll wait on you. That dark sky became an aquarium of sparks and love, and every fish had a name. Those 3 days stretched into 3 decades. And despite the baptism, preachers and lawmakers and winners and losers and lovers and haters and neighbors with tongues and arms hot like red irons would over and over again hold my head underwater, hoping that the metal hiss of steam would mock me as I drowned. But with each plunge under, the darkness of the water would part, and fish made out of stardust would lay hands on me and dance in the spirit. This last one's called Promise. I have no idea where we are in the 13-minute time scale because I pretended to look at my phone, but I think we got time for this. And I always read this one for the LGBTQ youth in this country who are too young to have money to pay our politicians to keep them safe. And so they are constantly under attack. So this one's for them. Take it from a fat, gay, weird sissy from up the holler. That's me. Sometimes you gotta cry and let the moon pull the pain polluted tide out of your body onto the shores of your face so that your oceans can be pure again. Sometimes you gotta cuss, gotta hurl hot, raging, high voltage divinations into the air so that they can turn tables and set fire to the hills to clear a path for you to keep going. Sometimes you gotta mourn and gather together enough time and space to create gravity that wraps its roots deep and intimately around a moment so that you can be sure of what was real. So you go ahead, cry, cuss, and mourn, but keep your head pointed toward the sky because this moment will not be the end of you.
Hi, you good? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I love Malaprops, and I'm so honored to be reading with the rest of you. I'm going to be reading from my debut collection, which came out last April, Reaching the Shore of the Sea of Fertility. The first thing I want to read is part of a longer poem from the book, which is based on a questionnaire that hospitals and doctors give to new moms to gauge their mental health, called the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. It's maybe some of you, I don't know if that's familiar. Basically, it's made up of 10 statements about the previous week, which you're supposed to kind of answer sometimes, often, never, that kind of thing. The whole thing is too long to read here, so I'm just going to read a few sections. And each section starts with one of the 10 statements on the scale. It's called the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. The most common measure to screen for depression related to childbearing is the EPDS. This self-report instrument contains 10 items ranked from 0 to 3 that reflect the patient's experience over the past week. The EPDS has been validated extensively for use in the postpartum period. Dorothy K. Sitt, MD, and Catherine L. Wisner, MD, MS. 1. I have been able to laugh and see the funny side of things. Steel. So much steel and cold, since the heat in the delivery room was either off or sweltering. The husband faded behind pain, reappeared, again faded. Then I was close enough to see over the cliff of terror and jumped. She was out of my skin and in the world. She opened one gray eye. Who in the world? One more thing, OB talking again. Blood clotted in uterus, bring it out by hand, this will hurt. And fingers, blocky man's fingers swept me, like when you empty your bag into the trash. Scooping, shaking, I was, body flexed tight as a bowstring, teeth crushed together for how long, then chattering and very cold. She cried like she was hoarse, just whispers. They pricked her heel every 2 hours, squeezing out her blood. Lying beside us, my husband looked over at her, and she was blue, only for a moment. Have I laughed? I smiled a lot at people who smiled at me. If something funny were to happen, I would laugh, I think. Nothing funny has happened. 2, I have looked forward to things with enjoyment, as much as I ever did, though I deliberate over this statement with confusion and a familiar sense of dread. In the center of my body is a river of fear and whispering, unknown shapes and dark and sharp edges slowly roil. At the hospital, I broke open, exposing the wincing skin of a baby 3 weeks early to cold air and bright lights. I was sorry for her, so sorry. The midwives had bragged about their discharge time, 4 hours after delivery. You'll want to be home. After the baby turned blue, then pink again, and my milk hadn't come in, I knew differently. My husband, more rattled than I. His Meniere's diagnosis, strange symptoms of tinnitus, balance problems, deafness, casting a slowly ballooning shadow. When he goes back to work in a week, I thought, I'll be completely alone with this. My own body sewn back together with steel or plastic, still bleeding. 3, I have blamed myself unnecessarily when things went wrong. I have blamed myself correctly when things went wrong. I'm a marionette, limping home with a blown glass infant balanced on my wooden arms. 9, I have been so unhappy that I have been crying. Only occasionally does pain or crying happen to me. Most of the time, I feel the chill and open space of awe, but without the joy. Quite often, my canoe slides down a river of threat, a low sky boxing us in, strange forms moving under us. Often, a goblin crouching behind me sings grim fairy tales in one ear. I scan the floor for roaches with one eye. Husband's vertigo laps the gunwales, tinnitus screaming like a jet engine only he can hear. In the night, her cry boxes our ears like the gunshot we heard last night from the next street over. We string our nerves around the perimeter of the bedroom to cast a soft glow. 10, the thought of harming myself has occurred to me. When you first gave me this test, the day after my body ran aground on a reef and pushed out a baby, not a single thought had occurred to me. Only this shipwreck, its 2 bloodied survivors. When you gave me this test again, first pediatrician's visit at 2 weeks, I knew what you wanted me to say. Everyone firm and efficient, and I, a ghost not entirely embodied, was expected to raise a human child and, if possible, to get inside the walls of the cheerful city. First, the thought never, ever occurred to me. Second, when I drove her to sleep every afternoon, freedom of the mind, if not the body, blank mugshots of unhappy mothers occurred to me, and I recognized them. My arms so tired, I held the wheel with one hand at a time. Months later, I allowed it to occur to me that relief, brightness, and completeness was a ramp into the sky as the sun set above the interstate. All 3 of us exiting our terrible life in the same car at the same time, instantaneous. What a drug. To imagine the end with neither pain nor survivors. Sometimes, during endless nursing sessions, I imagined the solidity and peace of lying in a roomy box under spring topsoil. Nothing to pull or push me, fight me, ask anything of me, or cry these terrible, sad cries. I've been fighting with the husband over housework in the daytime, and we've been screaming. In the night, the baby cries. Under the earth. I could lie perfectly still, be perfectly silent. I think I hear rain falling. Above me, earthworms and tiny centipedes tunnel. Grubs rest in their little caves. I feel around me the light curtains of roots, working in their diligent way, unaware of me. So a lot of the poems in this book are about motherhood stuff, all the motherhood stuff from labor to postpartum to miscarriage. The next poem that I want to read is about trying to get pregnant, which is its own category of thing. And if you know, you know. It's called Trying. Leaving the party on a pretext, I return to the 2nd-story apartment. I could walk out of each window onto hackberry branches, or emerge from the bedroom skylight, dimmed with rainwater deposits and fine cracking, into the crown of a hackberry. What do people want when they want children? Souls from the next world or the previous? Maybe our lives have not yet been lived. Maybe our lives have never been lived. Little shoots, little eggs, you wither and go down with the massa damnata to the place where the unformed rest. In my pelvic cavity, the wheel of the cedar spins, dropping eggs and furrows. At the farm, I seed clover, vetch, rye, and oats over 4 acres, but nothing comes up in the fall or our warm southern winter. A flock of doves burst into flight as we drive past. Did they eat the seed? Did early warmth coax the shoots out and then kill them with hard frosts? It's the end of March, and the martins and red-winged blackbirds are back. A song sparrow tunes a bow-like syrinx. My basil seedlings keel over one after the other, damping off. Our farmer says healthy plants can fight pests. Healthy soil doesn't need fertilizer in the growing season, she says. When the farm's bright February seedlings faded pink and purple in the greenhouse, starved by nutrient-poor potting media, we started over, adding handfuls of fertilizer, soaking new shoots in fish emulsion, direct seeded, though it was early. Tiny seed leaves, opening yourselves undaunted to the glow of my apartment grow lamp. What do you want to be? For several years, I did field work on a small vegetable farm in East Tennessee, east of Knoxville, which is where I'm from. And I met so many of my favorite plants and vegetables. A truly amazing experience, although it was probably the hardest work of my life. The last poem that I'm going to read is about maybe my favorite vegetable, which I spent lots of time planting, weeding, and harvesting. It's called Vegetable X. Garlic leaves stand in a grid, satisfying as lattice top pie. Nothing in my life stays where I put it like these. A hard tug leaves green juice on the hand. Broad, spreading roots cling to soil like a hank of hair to scalp. Unbrowsed by deer, groundhog, rabbit, yes, hallelujah, I say it before Easter. I say it when I want. I say it to the volatile sulfur compounds that address the olfactory, elicit a moan. Then with a sly smile, split clove open and glistening, say, wanna do it again? Garlic, delicious slut. I grow you to lick your lovely clit. I come out to watch you grow your sprouts in December, your thick shaft in March, your 6th leaf in April, your juice running in May. And in June, I pull one plant to see your pink wrappers drying, tattered. I peel a pale bulb with my thumb, each small mound tumescent, alive, arcing with pleasure.
I think this is okay height-wise. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you to Malaprops. Thank you to my fellow poets for reading with me. I'm Courtney LeBlanc. I live in Arlington, Virginia. For those bad at geography, that is the very northern part of the state, just across the river from Washington, D.C., 5 miles from my front door to the White House front door, which means it's an interesting place to live, depending on who's in office. But I grew up on a farm in North Dakota. And for those who've never been to that state, in the winter, it is very, very cold. -10, 20, 30 is common. It's very flat. They get a lot of snow and it's very windy. So it's basically hell frozen over. And that's important for this first poem. And it does have some cursing in it. So y'all are adults, you're fine. You ain't shit, North Dakota. You're all snow and flat and forever horizon. You flyover state. You mega hat Fox News junkie. The year I left, it snowed on June 1st. June 1st, you motherfucker. Can't bury the dead in a North Dakota winter unless you bonfire first. My 18th birthday brought a storm that shut down a state that knows how to deal with snow. North Dakota laughed at chains on tires, laughed at the fools who tried to leave their neighborhoods. My father cleared the driveway with the snowblower, and North Dakota punked him and dropped another 8 inches, as if his work was ever done. And now he's dying. You did this to him, North Dakota. You broke him. His whole life spent nurturing you, feeding the world with the wheat he grew in your rich soil. He never touched the black tar of long dead dinosaurs that sits beneath you, never mind the millions it could bring. And what do? You give him thunder snow. You withhold the northern lights that have, on rare occasion, pirouetted across the sky like a bright green ballerina. I saw them once, had to pull over to gape, but my father has never seen them, and now his eyesight is failing. His hands shake. He's always cold. His one functioning kidney is stuttering to a stop. It'll drag all the other organs down with it. It won't take long, but his doctor has promised she'll make it painless. If he dies this winter, I'll cut down every tree in every forest across you, North Dakota. I'll build a fire big enough to see from space. Let the astronauts think it's the northern lights. Let everyone think the world is ending. Because for me, part of it will. I am going to be reading some poems about disordered eating. So if you need to step away for your own safety and health, please do so. I won't be offended. This next poem is titled, I Don't Eat After 8 p.m. I once read you shouldn't eat after 8 p.m. if you want to lose weight. And I, a woman who hated her body for a decade, always wanted less to hate. The week my dad died, I ate my mother's pretzel dessert with a spoon, pan held beneath my chin like a trough, the salty sweet combination filling my belly with calories I couldn't begin to count. I ran 7 miles each morning, the flat stretching before me unbroken. My father lay quiet, first in the hospital, then in the living room, no longer consuming anything, his small frame dark against the pale sheet. When I came inside, sweat slick and panting, I kissed his face, told him about my run, the flowers blooming in the ditch, the blue sheet of sky. That night, after my mother had finally gone to bed, I sat in the chair I pulled to my father's bedside and ate a cloud of carbs, the homemade bread my mother baked and I grew up on. I slathered on a layer of butter, licked the melted gold from my fingertips, told him in between bites that I loved him. My dad died early in the pandemic, not pandemic related, just the timing. But everyone was still in the baking bread phase. So when I went to North Dakota, I asked my mom for her bread recipe, which is the bread I grew up on and it had been my grandmother's recipe. And I'm in the South right now, so you all probably won't be surprised by the secret ingredient. It was Crisco. Like a cup of it, which is disgusting and yet so delicious. No wonder it melts completely in your mouth. Oh, Mom. When my therapist asks how I'm doing, I talk about the election, my father's death, my friend's brain tumor. I don't tell her about my 2.5-hour workout that morning, how I wouldn't stop until I burned 1,000 calories. I don't tell her of my daily ritual of stripping down, exhaling every ounce of breath before stepping onto the scale. How if there's a hair tie around my wrist, it must be removed and the ritual repeated. I don't tell her I know the calories in my morning coffee, 102, or my yogurt and granola, 170, or that I fear growing into my mother's body. I spent a decade eating nothing more than an apple and 2 rice cakes between the hours of 8 and 4. When I gave up that slow march toward a hungry death, I thought I'd be normal. But what is normal if not tracking every bite of broccoli? If not knowing the calories in a single baby carrot? I don't tell her because I like when my clavicles arch out from my chest, when my hip bones jut forward like handlebars. I don't tell her because I don't want to talk about what ended 15 years ago, even if its fingerprints remain permanently etched on me. Instead, I talk about the daily hikes with my dogs, my friend's chemo routine, the new meditation app I downloaded. My session ends and I scoop up the Rumple Kleenex and drop them in the garbage. There's a bowl of leftover Halloween candy near the exit. I dig for a Snickers, pop the bite-sized chocolate into my mouth and make it last until I reach my car. This time, I don't record it. This time, I regret not taking two. And I'm just gonna read one more poem for you. It's where the collection gets its title. I was born in '79 and my younger sister was born in 1980. We have an older sister who's about 8 or 9 years older than us. And she would record movies off of Showtime onto VHS. And I think everyone in the room is old enough to know what a VHS tape is. And my younger sister and I would then watch them, which meant we watched a lot of movies that were not age appropriate. But it also means that a lot of those movies are sort of cemented in my childhood and in my heart. And so this poem is about one of them, and it's titled, "The Night My Father Died, We Made My Brother-in-Law Watch Dirty Dancing." Because the whole week was exhausting. None of us slept, our eyes swollen from crying. My throat was so sore, I worried it was strep. When the strep test came back negative, I worried it was COVID. The hospital bed still sat in the corner with medical supplies stacked beside it. The neighbors kept bringing over food, and so we grief ate. That morning, I woke at 3:45 a.m. to give my dad his dose of morphine. I found my mom asleep in the recliner, and when I woke her, she said, I couldn't hear him breathing from the bedroom. I sent her to bed, tucked the syringe into my dad's cheek, and pushed the plunger slowly, the morphine absorbing because he could no longer swallow. I stayed up until 5 a.m., dozed until 6:30 when my mom woke to take over so I could go for a run, because it's hard to cry while running. And when my dad's brothers and sister arrived, I greeted them in the driveway, the day cruelly bright and beautiful. It took his brothers 3 tries to make it into the house, 3 tries to say goodbye. My aunt called my sister by the wrong name, but none of us corrected her. And then my dad's best friend showed up. It took him 30 minutes and 4 cigarettes to gain the courage to hold his hand. And when my dad took his last breath, we didn't realize for a moment he was gone, but no inhale followed, and I couldn't find a pulse. I kept my fingers on his wrist, hoping to feel a tiny blip, but it didn't come. And so that night, my sister and my mother and I watched a movie we'd seen a dozen times. We sang along to the soundtrack and laughed when Jim didn't know the plot. We needed nostalgia and distraction and a happy ending. We needed Baby up on that stage, her whole bright life ahead of her. Thank you so much.
That was so wonderful. Let's just. Thank you so much, Lola, Haskins, Willie, Taylor, Carver, I've skipped one name, and, Courtney, LeBlanc, and Anna Laura Reeves. And now we do have the books for sale. So if you don't mind, if you would like copies of these books, you will proceed to the counter and you get the books, and we're going to arrange here. The poets will be here to sign the copies for you. Thank you so much. See you again on April 7th for another poetry/quartet reading. Thank you.